Hi, I'm sorry I can't be there for the presentations this week and last, but I hope you will accept this as a replacement. My project is called Penumbra, What is a Legal Metaphor? And it is a year-long art collaboration with a artist named Maureen Connor. Um, and as a social practice CUNY fellow, I was investigating with her how socially engaged artists might alter or influence public perceptions about legal issues and justice. In particular, we were looking at women's health as well as reproductive justice from a historical lens. Maureen is an art historian who is a professor emeritus of CUNY Queens, and she's very interested in a researcher named Silvia Federici and the transition in the Middle Ages from uh, practices of healthcare belonging to women and then that being taken over by men through the process of capital and a changing from the feudal relations to capitalist relations. I'm interested in how what's called rights talk influences legal mobilization and whether um, socially engaged artists can work with community organizers effectively in order to change or alter the narrative that the public has about certain legal cases. In this case, we're looking at the contrast of Dobbs versus Jackson women's health to Roe versus Wade. And so what you're seeing here is a art installation that we did called Picturing the Constitution, a public event at the old Stone House in Park Slope, Brooklyn. And we looked at kind of those three layers the historical herbs used in abortion, the transition from women as health workers to men as health workers, and then the contrast of the language in the two cases with some specific focus on history. Um, I'm interested in how metaphors shape our understanding of issues and how we use metaphors in our everyday language. I imagine two people as my primary audience and representatives of that audience. One is our socially engaged artists like Tommy Mintz, who I worked with previously on another art collaboration involving a case in New York called Callahan, and then now was leading into this case in Boise about rights of the homeless and the responsibilities of the state. Um, and so I wanted to kind of run this project by him and the digital story that I'm going to create to see whether I'm capturing kind of those elements that are common among socially engaged artists. The other is I want to think forward looking, and so the other is my 12-year-old niece, uh, who's very interested in kind of identity politics and healthcare in particular. Her mother, my sister, is a nurse, and so I would like this to be accessible to her and for her to start being able to make sense of the legal language in the contrasting cases and to start thinking about her own reproductive rights. Um, so I also want this to kind of be, because it's a digital story, accessible to that generation. And so I'm kind of trying to think about ways of breaking the story up into pieces and then kind of delivering it almost like a TV series. Um, a digital story is not very complicated in its concept. It's really just taking still images, audio, and video, and kind of editing and crafting those together into a cohesive narrative. Um, Metaphors, so my literature kind of review or its grounding in scholarly, uh, is basically that metaphors work when they're able to attach to a shared narrative among a group, and then that is what is able to generate agency among those actors. So, for particular, the Greensboro sit-ins used the metaphor of the fire this time, which is also a James Baldwin book. But they use language like it sparked like a fire, it was like a wildfire, and so this language was prevalent among different groups, even though they weren't necessarily talking to one another. And so you'll see that commonly used as kind of this framing. of their activism. This has been well documented, the value of metaphors in generating agency throughout social science. And then law is rife with metaphors. Judges use metaphors. Law is itself metaphoric. And so there's kind of this great opportunity to bring in metaphors from law and see how they work with different social organizations. Um, I'm using critical participatory action research methods along with content analysis and social movements theories. And I kind of tried these out first in the classroom at Kingsborough Community College, but then also here at the public workshop that I did with Maureen at the Old Stone House in Brooklyn. And what I did was I had them deconstruct texts from the relevant cases that lead up to Dobbs, and then to reconstruct those together as a group and talk about how they feel as they were putting together those texts. So it's very much interactive, and we had conversations along the way, and this was able to help them understand that the metaphors they're generating in this process are important to helping them think about what specific steps they're taking. It also gets people out of that kind of liberal versus conservative reactionary kind of arguing, and gets them to start thinking outside of the box. So for this class, I'll be writing the white paper, and I'll focus mostly on the limitations and challenges. I was trying to use CUNY Commons, and while it's really good for some things, just the kind of interactivity I'm looking for and just the things I need to be able to do with the website, I'm finding that Commons is just too limited, or WordPress in particular is too limited. So I need to shop around over the break for different website services. And I was really inspired by the presentation that Naomi did, and the Butler's typewriter example from the museum she works at. And so I want to see whether I might be able to do something like that. I'm going to DC in January, and so I'm going to visit that museum and see if I can talk to some folks and see what options are kind of out there, and how we might be in conversation with one another. There's a large connection to their work through this project that I haven't yet explored, but that came up when Maureen and I were doing our research. And there's some activists down there that I'd like to be working with. I'm aiming for an accessible format, but as you can imagine, legal language, the processes and doctrines are complex and are often called legalese, and so I'm trying to figure out ways of making that simpler, while also not losing the complexity of the metaphor. This is going to require an experimental or nonlinear approach, and so I'm really going to draw towards emotions and using that be kind of my pathos and my way of getting into different audiences. I've been taking a weekly library course with Brianna Hopper, who's a literature professor at Queens College, and she's been helping me break this down into steps all semester. I really highly recommend taking that course and other library courses. And right now we're working on taking what I did with the group here as a happening, using Capro's work that I presented in class this semester. And it's taking the shape of a pitch to the online magazine Hyperallergic, and that's helping me. Excuse me, sorry. That's help. That's helping me organize my thoughts, and it's helping me simplify the narrative at the same time of getting the story out there, which is super important to me. I don't want to get too far behind this project, and so she's helping me break this up into pieces, and so I can kind of have a little bit out there into the public audience as possible. Thank you for your attention and for your interactivity this semester, and I look forward to any suggestions either through Slack, or if you'd like to email me, that'd be great. And I look forward to seeing you all in person someday.